Welcome to Search 185, where we discuss what it means to be human and made in the image and likeness of God. In our episodes, we discuss topics such as marriage, children, work, faith, fatherhood, and life in general. Our goal is to be a beacon of light to those that are searching for answers to life's biggest questions, such as, do I have a purpose in this world? Can I find meaning in life? Is it possible to find joy amidst the difficulties? And many other important questions. That is why we are called Search 185. The number 185 originates from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 5. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. We therefore extend our welcome to receive those who want to know Jesus more profoundly. It is also the chapter that illustrates how the Good Shepherd would leave the 99 sheep to search for the one lost sheep. Through our baptism, we are called to be another Christ and search for those who are looking for answers to life's greatest questions. So join us in this endeavor to discover the true, good, and the beautiful in the common and ordinary events of our lives. Now for your hosts, theologian Henry Avila and former mayor of Conroe, Texas, Jody Chakowski.
I'd like to welcome everyone to Search 185 podcast, where we solve all the world's problems. Or we try to. Henry, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing real good. And yourself, Jody?
Man, I'm blessed. I'm doing better than I deserve, and God is good, brother.
Better than I deserve is the right answer.
Hey, so guys, today we're gonna tackle a very important subject here, and I think it's going to be a great show. And we're going to talk a little bit about parenting and how to raise kids in this crazy world. And my friend Henry here has raised many kids, so tell us how to do it, Henry. We all want to know.
Yeah, well, I'm not the world's expert, but I've got some experience.
You got a little experience.
Much, and I figured, part of this podcast, I think, is sharing not only our successes, but our failures.
Sure.
I think it's important that we admit that we don't know everything. And secondly, it's important for us to learn from those mistakes. And a lot of times, when you first got your first child, you have no idea what you're doing. I was 21 when we had our first child. So, you think that at 21, you're an adult already and you're grown up and you're ready to tackle the world. I'll tell you what, you throw a kid in there and it totally makes you humble to realize you don't know that.
You got to grow up real quick.
Got to grow up real quick. It's a huge and monumental task. God put this on us and he's like, I'm giving you responsibility over this life, this child here that you get. But first of all, before we get started, why don't you tell me a little bit about your family?
Yeah. We've talked about this many times before. I'm married to Nicole, Christy Nicole, formerly Rodriguez, now Tchaikovsky, and we have three beautiful, healthy kids. My daughter Olivia is 16 years old, and she about a week ago started her first job as a lifeguard at the Conroe City Pool. So nice. Got her in the workforce, and then about 3 days after that, she got her driver's license. So that's where I'm in life with my 16-year-old. So I need a lot of prayers, guys, so keep me in mind. My son Charlie is 13 years old, and I left the house today, and he was power washing. So I felt pretty good as a father today, doing a little work out there.
Yeah.
And Caroline is my youngest daughter. She's 10 years old, and she actually takes after me more than any of the other kids. So if you do want to pray for my family, her name's Caroline, and my name's Jody, and we need all the prayers we can get. But no, I'm blessed with three beautiful, healthy children, and I've got two at Sacred Heart Catholic School in Conroe, and one at Frassati Catholic there in Spring Woodlands area.
Nice.
Very fortunate.
And for myself, married to Gina, and she and I have been married now going on 40 years. Will be 40 years this October, and wouldn't trade a day, for anything. She's an amazing woman. From this one woman, we were able to have 9 children, 7 boys and 2 girls. My number 1 and number 4 are of the girls, and then the last 5 were all boys. So you imagine a house full of boys, and you can imagine the room. You walk into their room and it's stinky. You got shoes off and everything else, and sweaty and wrestling and everything.
Maybe a little chaos.
A little bit of chaos.
Absolutely.
And I won't even tell you about my grocery bill with these boys. So that's a whole different story. But to me, I think that's really important that when we first had our first child, that we don't know what the personality is going to be. We don't know what things are going to come in our life that's going to affect us. It's so brand new. I remember when my wife and I, put our first child, her name's Andrea, put her in the car seat, and we looked at each other, and we're leaving the hospital, and we're going, now what?
Showtime.
It's showtime. It starts right now. But I think sometimes the oldest kind of gets the short end of the stick. If you know what I mean? They're brand new. We're brand new. We're having to learn through our mistakes, and they're having to endure through learning through those mistakes. And hopefully as parenting, and more children come along, our parenting gets better, right? We get wiser and figure out how much some of these solutions that hopefully we'll talk about today, a little bit about of raising these kids and what to do and what not to do. But then I'm hoping that some of these ideas that we've had, of course, they're not going to be for everybody. Everybody's situation can be very different than ours. And so there'll be a variety of things that we can cover. But what I would suggest from people taking from this podcast is that you take what's good, what applies to you, and use it in your family if it works for you. And if it doesn't, continue to search out ideas on how to raise your kids. And last time we talked about how to find a good spouse and stuff like that. It's just work those things that put effort into them, right? To become a better parent or become a better husband. And so to me, this whole thing about parenting first really comes down to that if you want to get parenting right, you have to get the parent right.
True.
And what I mean by that is that you and me as fathers, we have to get our act together. When I was 21, I was still in school and, didn't have a job because I'm in school.
Sure.
So you're having to worry about how I'm going to provide and all these things that are going on in your head when you're that young. But we need to make sure that we're on that journey to improving ourselves and our lives to become more like our Heavenly Father. I became a father. I didn't know how to father except what I saw when I was growing up.
Same here.
And maybe some other dads that were in my life. But we have to try to get ourselves right so that we're filled with the wisdom of God, with the holiness that He wants us to be as husbands and fathers, and to have mercy and compassion too, because that's part of raising kids. It's not just about you do as I say. It is about having compassion and empathy and trying to understand where these kids are. And, those are the types of things that you deal with. So how do we do that?
Yeah, as we mentioned before in our other podcast, the key to relationship with God and growth and holiness in prayer, and it's hard for me, and I think it's in Psalms 46, but it tells us just to be still and know that I am God. In my mind, that's how we learn to focus on our family. It's very similar to with our children. Is a lot of times just be patient, be still, and don't overreact.
Yeah, I think listening to God's word and growing in holiness is going to be the first step. I know that wasn't my first step at 21 to grow in holiness, but if I were to give any advice to young parents out there right now is to get your relationship with God right. And when you get that right, that grace that's working in your life will help you to be a better father, to give you the patience that you need, because by golly, it requires a lot of patience. And if you don't have it, it's going to cause a lot of problems. I think it's important for us when we start out to be present with our kids. I think for you had mentioned to me that that's one of the most important things for you is to be there for them. Kind of, give me some examples maybe of what some of the things that you do with your kids.
Yeah, no, in our discussion, I had been in public office and ran a company, and as your younger years, you think that's most important is a house in the hills and a Mercedes-Benz and a beautiful wife. And as we all learn in adulthood, that those things are all nice and fun, but it has nothing to do with long-term holiness. And so I would come home a lot, but I wasn't necessarily focused on my children. I was focused on other things. I would be there, but I wasn't necessarily present. And I know in the last year or two, that's what I've really been working on at home, is to spend time with the kids, pay attention, whether it be a little walk around the corner or a drive to the store together. And you and I talked about this the other day. You don't have to take a a vacation to Disneyland to spend time with your kids.
Yeah.
It can be a matter as a car drive out to the lake, or like I said, go to the grocery store together.
Absolutely. And, you and I get to a point where we know and understand we're supposed to be providing for our families. Well, that's great. But if that's all you're doing is just being a provider, it's not good enough. We have to be fathers too. And to me, I think with us, we spend a lot of time camping with scouts. Mm-hmm. All my boys went through scouts. My girls went through scouting in one way or another. It was important for us to, at least for me as their father, to be in that moment with them, out in nature, let them do what they were going to do out, have fun, get hurt, whatever. But they know their dad's there, or when my boys play sports, to know that mom and dad are in the stands. That's all they really need. They don't need to see you all the time while they're playing or anything else. They just need to know they're there. And I think that's that part of being present that I appreciated with my dad. My dad was a hard worker. He, all his life, and he never missed my games, playing football or whatever. And he was my coach for boxing.
Very, very simple. And maybe we overcomplicate it.
I think we do.
Yeah.
I think we overcomplicate things. We think we need to do so much with the providing part and the protecting part and everything else that we forget that what they really need is us. Our attention. We need to be present to them. And when they talk to us, to actually look at them in the eye, because a lot of times it's very easy to be on your phone and try to listen,
Sure.
and the kid's talking to you and it's like, no, put your phone down,
yeah,
or quit watching the television, or something's important, push pause or whatever you need to do and look them in the eye and say, I'm listening, right? With your own expression, you're telling them I'm listening and I care. And that goes a long ways for your kids, is when they look at you, that you're looking back at them and when you're talking to them. And it means more to them. I think for us too, eating meals together was important.
Very important.
You tend to grow bonds during that time. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a funny story. With all our kids there, we got a big table, lots of chairs, lots of food, and everybody's getting to the table. And one of my poor kids, little Eli, he's young. He's probably about 4 or 5, and he's sitting there and he just starts crying. And we're like, what's the matter? He says, I need to go to the bathroom. I said, well, we'll go to the bathroom. He goes, no, if I leave, somebody will eat my food. It's like, no one's going to eat your food. It's not like that here, Now, Dad might go over there and pick some food off your plate while you're not looking. But at the same time, it's like, no, it's not that kind of environment here. Even though it kind of feels sometimes, when you got that many siblings around, it's like, either eat or be eaten, type of scenario.
What do y'all, when you eat dinner, do you sit in the same chair every time? Is there a daddy chair?
Yeah, there's definitely a daddy chair. Okay. No doubt of that. And sometimes the boys will sit there and I'm going, you think you're ready for that spot?
I didn't have one before, but then as my son's grown older, there's kind of one I usually sit in. And yeah, I caught myself the other day, get out of my chair, man. That's my chair,
Well, and the queen always sits to my left here, right? So Gina's always here and I'm at the head of the table. It's not so much that anything else, but I like it because I get to see everybody.
Yeah.
That's my reasoning behind sitting at the front, is not so that I'm, look like the king, but because I can see everyone down the table. And I tell you what, I don't know how many times I've sat at our table and I'll look down and man, it just makes me cry, because I'm so proud of the children that I have. I'm so proud of them, and I'm so blessed with these kids that it's just like, this is good. This is what it's all about.
God used you to create all that.
That's right. And
that, hey, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. I mean, we're put on this earth to bear fruit and reproduce, and then raise them upright and turn them loose.
And whenever you're a co-creator with God, that's how you influence the world. A lot of people think, well, I need to go out and be, great in this world to influence the world. I tell you what, the greatest influence you can make on the world is to raise good, holy, productive, responsible children.
That's your legacy.
That's your legacy. When they go out, they change the world. And a lot of parents are like very sad when their kids leave the house. And I am too. I love for them to stay at the house. But the Lord told me in some manner that they're there so that they can continue to be the gospel message outside of my house, outside of my realm,
Yeah.
and go change the world for good, for Christ.
I tell my kids all the time, go be the light. I mean, we're raising you. I mean, our children today compared to, from Adam and Eve to now, I mean, they're modern day princes and princesses, and,
Yeah.
and they're so blessed and could have so much influence, and just to realize that. But yeah, you nailed it. A friend told me when we had our first child, I thought it was good advice. He said, Jody, you want to basically give them roots in faith, and then give them wings and let them go. And he said they'll crash and burn every once in a while, and they'll come back to you. But if they've got those roots in faith, they'll be okay.
Well,
So that was good advice.
Isn't that what happened with you and me? I mean, they had to let us go too, and we had a few bumps and bruises along the way. And it's hard when you see your children going through difficult times.
I knocked a couple wings off.
Glad you got a whole bunch more in reserve there. But, to me, one of the other important things is one of the things my dad taught me, and that was to be a good worker.
Sure.
I can't thank him enough for that. And he's gone now. He died in December of 2020. But for many, many years, I admired him because of what he taught me, the wisdom he had. Of course, during those first years, your teenage years and maybe your early 20s, your dad doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
But once you have your first child and you start working and you get out in life, you're like, you know what? There's a lot of wisdom that he taught me. And one of those things he taught me was to work, to have a good work ethic. And he was good because he had a good balance. And that's important, I think, is to be a hard worker, but don't work so much that you don't ever see your kids. Right. And I don't know, what kind of work does your kids do? I mean, what do you have some responsibilities for them at your house?
Yeah, I mentioned that my daughter just got her first job, and my son's job for the last couple of weeks, he's been power washing the house, the driveway, and just a little bit at a time, trying to get him into the workforce. And then, we get him to help with the dishes and put the dishes up after dinner. And my wife grew up working. I grew up working since I was young, on the construction side, and I was blessed. My father, James, he passed away last year, but he taught me not only to work, but to work hard and to get it. And,
That's right.
If you got a job and you can finish it in 3 days versus 5 days, I mean, you're a lot more profitable doing it in 3 days because you move on to the next deal, and just had that extreme work ethic. So was blessed there as well.
No doubt. I think when you look at a family of 9 plus, me and Gina of 11, I don't think we ever had 11 at one time, but we definitely had 9 at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time that Gina was like, she's an organizer. She's like, look, we're going to have some roles here with these kids because, I mean, she can't do all the laundry. She can't do everything for everybody. Need some help. And so she's like, I'm going to set down some rules. And we discussed it. He said, the kids need to be able to do their own laundry. I'm like, that's a novel concept because I grew up, my mom did my laundry. Yeah. There was only 3 of us. And so
sometimes easier said than done.
It's way easier said than done. And I admire my mom for all that she did for us. And I thank her so much. But even with 3 kids, it's hard to keep up with laundry. You imagine 6, 7, It's just impossible. And so right from the get-go, I always had to start doing my own laundry just because when we started having kids, it was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And secondly, once the kids got to a certain age, Gina was like, you know what? I think let's try it at 10 years old. They start doing their own laundry. And I told my mom that. My mom was like, you're making them do their own laundry? I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's too many of us, And she's like, well, okay, And so sure enough, 10 years old, you start doing your own laundry. And hey, I don't have underwear. It's like, did you do your laundry? No, I haven't done my laundry.
Better turn them inside out.
They better turn them inside out or go commando or something, And they had to learn. They had to learn to do their wash. They had to learn to put it away so that they can find their socks and their shirts and everything else. And so we saw a sense of a growth and responsibility at a very young age. And it's not like slave labor. It's their own clothes, right? So it's not like they're having to wash everybody else's either. So it's a good starter for them to learn some responsibility.
Yeah, I know with my children, I've caught myself trying to teach them how to do a trade or something around the house, and I get frustrated because they're not doing it right, and I just go do it for them.
Yeah.
And like life in general, you have to let them fail, but having that patience and teaching them responsibility at a young age, the world, it gives nothing to you.
Yeah.
And so you got to get out there and go to work every day and provide for your family. So most important.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I think was very important for us is the kids learned to contribute to the household. You know, the kids would say, well, why do I have to wash dishes? Why do I have to do these things? And it's like, because you're part of a household, you're part of a family, you're part of a team.
Yeah.
Gina would always call us a team, and because I think it relates to the kids a little bit easier.
It's the A team.
It's the A team,
A-team.
the Avila team, right? And they had to learn that if you're going to benefit from being in this family, you're also going to have to contribute to it.
Sure.
And the chore part became a chore for us to handle, because I guarantee you, it's like, okay, you're going to do dishes for a week, and then you're going to do this. And every kid had an assignment. Gina and I had assignments in our chores and stuff. But what would happen is throughout the week, it's like, well, who's supposed to be taking the trash out? Well, you know, John was supposed to be doing it. No, I did it last week.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was chaos, and it drove my wife crazy. So being the organizer she says, Henry, I need you to make me, because I do a lot of woodworking projects and stuff like that. She says, I need you to make me a wheel, a thin board wheel about this big, and then a smaller one that goes on the inside. I want you to put a screw in the middle so that the middle one turns. I said, okay. So I did it, cut it out for her, brought it to her, and she drew lines through it like a pie chart, you know, and she put everybody's name on the outside, and on the inside wheel, she put all the chores. And she said, what we're going to do is once a month, this thing's going to rotate to the next section.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, it was. I was like, man, that's fantastic. You know, that's a great way to keep up, because there's no question. Wherever your name is and whatever's right in that center circle, that's your job. And you say, well, I'm not supposed to be doing dishes. Go look at the chore chart. It was
the wheel of fortune.
Well, we called it the chore chart.
Okay.
They call it the wheel of torture.
Okay.
That's what they call it. So for them, it was like the wheel of torture, because they had to do work. And of course, the big one was the washing dishes. And so whoever did dishes dreaded it, because there's so many of us. Mm-hmm. And it was like a ton of dishes. And so over time, we have to evolve, right? You don't just set one rule and just do it for the rest of your life. It evolved. It's like, look, you're going to need to rinse your dishes, because the guy that's doing the dishes doesn't need to be rinsing your dishes, getting the food off and all that. You need to rinse them and rack them. And then that person's going to wash them, right? And put them in the dishwasher, stuff like that. And so it evolved. But over the course of the years, it was really interesting, because as kids left the house, there was a spot that no longer was taken. Mm-hmm. And so Gina would take it apart, paint it, and then redraw the lines and redo everybody else. And then it's like, okay, who's going to do this and who's going to do that? And distribute the workload. And it worked great for us, because there was never any question as to who had to do what. And if the trash wasn't done, you ought to look at the wheel of torture and see who hadn't done the trash yet. And there was no issues as far as to who was supposed to do it. So little things like that helped our family to gain a little peace in that chaos of doing chores with so many kids, was genius by my wife. You know, it took a load of chaos and stress away from that, but just by that very little thing that she was doing. And, you know, the boys, when they were little, I always mowed the lawn. Well, now that I have big, strong boys, it's like, you're doing the lawn.
Yeah.
So one boy would do the lawn and another would do the weed eating, and some of the others could contribute, you know. But one of the things that started coming out is allowances, right? This is a big one that comes up. It's like, I need an allowance. It's like, well, Gina and I are big Dave Ramsey fans. And Dave Ramsey says, don't just give your kids money. Make them earn it, because that's exactly what's going to happen in the real world. Sure. Right? If you want money, you need to work for it. So everybody had work to do. And part of their quote unquote allowance was how much work they did. And Gino and I always had a list of things, additional things they could do. And each one of those had a little price by it, you know, 50 cents for this, $1 for this. Of course, with inflation today, it'd be $5 for this or whatever, you know, but you would put on there, and then they would say, okay, I'm going to vacuum for $1 or whatever. And then they would have their money, and then they could go spend it however they wanted to, right? But that was part of the learning process on our part, because if you just, with my mom and my dad, it's like, hey, I need money to go to do something. Well, they just give me money, right? And I never really learned that with money comes work. Mm-hmm. It's not someone that's just going to give it to you in the real life. But I'm not complaining about any of that. I'm very blessed that my parents were able to do that. But still, I think it's important for kids to learn, especially in large families, that you have to contribute. And if you want to earn money, there's going to be opportunities for that.
I think I'm going to try that wheel of torture method. We have 3, but the chores, it's always, well, he didn't do this, or he did this last time, but I think if you change it up every month, like you said, it kind of, there are chores that are harder than the others.
There are.
And then in my house, I've got one boy, so he's got different levels than the 2 girls do, and of course he gets blamed for everything.
Of course, and don't be afraid to get your girls to mow the lawn too. I mean, it's my wife did that growing up, and she worked with her dad on cars and fixing the brakes or whatever the case. And really, the main thing is to give them something that they could handle, right? And mowing's tough. But even my girls learn how to change tires, how to change the oil. I mean, I took them out there and I showed them how to do all that, because I didn't want them to be dependent on somebody else to change their oil if they wanted to change it themselves.
Sure.
I think all this, though, having some type of work, especially as you get older, you're 13, 14, 15, when you start driving, you can drive to work now, right? You're 16 years old and you can drive. And that makes a huge difference in our family, but they need to learn that this is going to be part of their life. And right now they don't pay bills. So the work that they do, their money is something that we've taught them to save. This is part of the Dave Ramsey philosophy here is you need to save a certain portion of it too. And they're very good savers. They've learned, every one of the kids has gone through the Dave Ramsey class, and sometimes multiple times. But all this, I think, helps to build your children to have a level of integrity, honesty, and respect for authority whenever they start to work, and have a good work ethic. And same way with you. It's like your dad and my dad was the same way. When you're going to do something, you do it right the first time, and you do it quickly. Right? Don't be lollygagging around and eventually get it done. It's like, no, you do it quickly and you do it right.
My dad called it getting it.
Right? You got to get it.
Yeah, and the chores you talked about camping a little bit earlier, and my kids, we spend a lot of time at Lake Limestone. We've had a little place there, and I know initially I tried to teach them all how to fish at the same time. That don't work.
No,
bad idea.
No, it does not.
You really can't teach them anything at one time. I mean, you can be an example, but if you want to teach a kid how to do something, you need to snag them one-on-one.
It is, and especially if you've got varying personalities. Some are very sensitive. Mm-hmm. Some are tough. So you got to be careful that the sensitive one is not getting ignored or whatever is causing them to get upset, or that you're getting impatient with them. Some of them, some of my kids, I can get a little impatient and it doesn't faze them. But a couple of them, you get a little impatient with them, and it just, like, when they were little, that causes them to start tearing up. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I got to be careful.
Yeah.
Got to pay attention. Yeah. Got to pay attention to the varying personalities in your kids, because sometimes you don't realize that you're doing something.
You call it impatient. I call it just freaking out or going off on them.
I was trying to be a little bit more gentle with the words there. But
every once in a while you lose it, and it's okay.
That's okay. Right. That's all right to lose it, but just don't lose it too badly. But I don't know. Your dad, I'm sure, was a very hard worker. You said you were in construction, and I bet he got up every day to go to work very early, and worked hard. My dad did the same thing, and I think that's one of the things that you and I, as parents, or anybody who's a parent, especially fathers, is to set a good example.
Sure.
And my dad was a great example of a good work ethic. He would get up every day. I don't hardly ever remember him calling in sick. And for sure, he never called in sick when he wasn't sick.
Can't make any money if you're sick.
No. And, but with the company he was working for oil company, Texaco, and he had a lot of sick days, paid sick days. So depending on your industry, right? If you don't show up for work, you don't get paid. But in this case, he could have taken advantage of the sick days and called in sick when he wasn't sick, and never saw that. And to me, that's admirable.
In the old days, a little cough or runny nose, that didn't mean you were missing work. I can't remember one time my father ever was sick at home, and I'm sure it happened. It happens to all of us, but I can't remember it.
I don't remember him having to miss work. But see, that's the example that I saw, and I'm sure he did. I'm sure he probably did, but it was nothing ever that was so obvious to me. It was totally out of the norm for him to be sick and not go to work. And even if he didn't feel well, he'd still go to work.
Sure.
And it's not that you don't want to be contagious to go to work, but if he had a headache or maybe a runny nose or something, he'd still go to work. And I think that's a great important example to be. One of the things, my dad never whined and complained about work, at least not in front of us. He may have told my mom, and I think that's important. In my 35 years of work, not as hard as my dad, but still a lot of long hours. I always made sure that if I had something negative to say, that it was just with me and my wife.
Yeah.
Because if the kids hear you whine and complain about work all the time, guess what? They're going to grow up, and when they don't like their job, they're going to whine and complain the whole time too. And I think it's important.
That's a good point.
Not to do that. Not every job's going to be great. You're not going to enjoy it. It may not be your dream job, but by golly, as a man, you better get up every day and go work. And I tell my boys that. It's like, you may not like getting up and on a Saturday and having to do the lawn and work all Saturday to do your chores and take care of our house, our home. But this is what you're going to end up doing when you leave this house and you start your own family. You're going to need to know how to do all this.
Yeah, my wife is an attorney and works for herself as well. And one thing I've learned that there are days that she has court. She's busy. Maybe she's busier than I am. And there's nothing wrong with the man actually picking up the kids or loading the dishwasher. Some men get to thinking that they're too good or too important to do certain things at the home, and that's where that pride and ego get off.
That machismo comes in.
Machismo, yeah. Yeah,
and that's pretty prevalent in the Hispanic community. The wife does everything. And of course, most of the wives are stay-at-home moms. My mom was not a stay-at-home mom for the most part. So she worked also, but she was a hardworking lady because she would come home and cook dinner.
Yeah, my mom did both.
She did both. And my dad, that's just the way he grew up. In his family, that's how it was. But I saw that, thank God, he gave me the wisdom to see that it wasn't good that my mom was always so tired and did so much work. My dad took care of everything else, right? He took care of the cars. He did most of the repairs on the cars.
That's kind of his man's deal.
Yeah. And the lawn, the yard, beautiful all the time.
And even if you pay somebody to do your lawn, you still get credit.
You get credit for that. Absolutely. If you pay for that, it's the same way with dinner. If you pay for dinner, you cooked.
I like that.
That's right. And so he had his duties, right, that he did. And water heater needed to be replaced. He replaced the water heater. Anything that needed to be done in the house. And that was his role. And did a great job with that. But with us and my family, we've got so many kids that it's not the same for me just to take care of the household stuff and then let Gina deal with all the kid stuff.
Yeah.
It's not too, and then to top it all off, when our oldest was, I believe she was going into the 6th grade, my wife decided to start homeschooling. We talked about it and agreed. And so not only does she have the responsibilities of a wife and mother, now she's got the responsibilities of the teacher. So all the preparation, the books, the purchasing, the supply, everything. An incredible amount of work that's there. So for me, I was like, I got to step it up a notch.
They don't make women like that.
No.
We might need to look at cloning, Gina.
Cloning, I know. She's incredible and high energy, very smart. But the thing was that more than anything else is that she has a heart of sacrificial giving, because that's exactly to be able to give me one more kid after that last one, and then one more after that one. That's a huge sacrifice on her part.
Sure.
Her body, her mental, health, everything. It's a gift. It's self-sacrifice, a gift of self. And then being able to teach the kids at home. And part of the reason that we did is because we wanted to be able to instill the values in our children that we wanted there. And I'm not saying there aren't good schools out there. There's plenty of good schools out there. And I'm not saying homeschooling is for everybody.
True. Some people can't handle it.
Not only that, but it doesn't work for them.
I've had friends that have tried and didn't work. I'll see them back at schoolhouse next year.
It's not an easy task. And for us, it was, I think, I know we discussed it and we felt that that's what God wanted us to do, right? To do that. And it worked well. My wife had to quit working and that changed everything because, at first you have two incomes and things are good. Sure. All of a sudden you're down to one income and it's a little bit tougher.
You got to trust in the Lord.
Got to trust. But you know what? To be honest with you, my wife, computer programmer, very smart. She worked for 6 years. And then she said, in her heart that the Lord was calling her to come home and be with the kids. And I couldn't argue with that. You don't argue with God.
True.
She felt that that's what God wanted her to do. And so I said, we'll make it work.
Well, that's beautiful because, women should have that option today. And I think a lot of them are coming back to that and realizing that raising those kids up right is a lot more important than driving that new Escalade. So, but you being a husband and supporting that is beautiful.
It is. And it was a very difficult. Now, my youngest is now about to be 18. He's in the senior year this coming year. So we're on the way downhill roll on this thing, right? We're at the very end of this. And so she's gotten a lot more time to do other hobbies that she likes to do. But my point behind all this is for many, many years, for over 20 years, she was a wife, a mother, and a teacher. And I had to kick it up a notch to try to do my best to help her out, as much as I could. And being an engineer, I'd handle some of the math stuff possibly, or maybe even the science or chemistry. But as time went on, we got better at it. We got better at it. So we're very, very blessed to have had that opportunity to do all those things ourselves.
So how do you handle the situation, Henry, when your kids backtalk?
Discipline, right? Yeah. It's a little bit of a difficult one because depending on who you marry, your spouse may not agree with how to discipline the kids.
Yeah, that's right. A good point.
And secondly, the other difficult thing is no two children are the same.
Yeah, me and my lady were disciplined totally opposite.
Well, me and my wife were too. My dad was a very strict disciplinarian. He was very loving, very caring, which I really appreciated that. And that's what I learned from his, that discipline and love are not mutually exclusive. They can still be one. And the reason I know that is because the Word of God tells us this. And I'm going to read this. It's a little bit long, but I'm going to read it anyway because I think it's important. It's in Hebrews chapter 12, 5 to 11. Hebrews chapter 12, 5 to 11. It says, "My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor lose courage when you are punished by him. For the Lord disciplines him whom he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time in their pleasure, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it."
Sums it up.
It does. It really sums it up. It's like, it's not ideal. You would rather not have to deal with discipline.
Yeah. We have to have discipline to discipline.
That too. That's a perfect way to say that, because you and I need discipline from the Lord. And heck, we're going to be disciplined possibly from an employer or whatever it may be. There's always going to be an opportunity to learn, to fall under somebody else's authority and do what you're supposed to be doing. The main thing for me, I think, is that discipline has to be done at appropriate forms of discipline, right? Based on their age. When they're tiny, where they're little, they're crawling around and they're grabbing stuff they're not supposed to, or poking something in the outlet or whatever, electrical outlet. Good, strong voice usually will shock them and scare them enough. Sure. It was like, and you tell them no. Eventually they'll start testing those limits. And I don't know how many times I would see my kids, they know they're not supposed to grab or touch something, and they'd look at us and then they'd go grab for it, and you're like, no, no, no. So they wouldn't do it. And then eventually they got older, and it's like, I'm going to go ahead and do it, see what happens. And so you either get a swat on the butt, or something, a stronger voice or whatever. Maybe they cry a little. They're still very little, but they know that there's a certain way of doing things, that when mom and dad have this voice, or I get a swatting on the butt, that this is not something I should be doing. And it doesn't hurt. It's not something that's going to be so traumatic to them that they're going to be distorted for the rest of their life. In reality, I think it's just the opposite. When there is no discipline, then I think you ruin the kid, because when they go out into the real world, they expect to be treated the same way, that they can do whatever they want to. Yeah. And it's going to be a rude awakening when their first boss says, "What, you think you come to work late every day?"
My wife is a criminal defense attorney. She's got a lot of clients like that, necessarily didn't learn that discipline at a young age, and we need it. I don't know about you, but I have, my wife and I both are very unorganized, and when I was young, they called it just a bad, wild kid, but I think they call it ADHD these days. But one thing, I'm guilty of is I'll let it slide once or let it slide twice, and then all of a sudden I overreact. Whereas I should have addressed it from the get go. But it's interesting, and there's an art to it as well.
Yeah. Do you have some examples of the type of disciplinary actions that y'all have in your house?
I've tried to go. My father was heavy-handed, so I try not to be as heavy-handed. Every once in a while, you do have to get a hand involved. But I've been having a lot of luck lately with push-ups, sit-ups, up and downs, little running, and mine argue all the time. They get into arguments and blame the other one. So if you can break them down and make them breathe a little harder by doing a good workout, that usually will help out. I think you talked about the bench. Well, my bench is get on that floor and start hammering push-ups and see if we can get their attention. But hey, I'm always open to learn. So tell me what works for you.
Yeah. So for us, any type of calisthenics, right? Jumping jacks, or the main one that I like was push-ups, because they're harder to do. And a funny story, one of my boys, we were at Scouts, and in Scouts you have a particular merit badge where you have to do a certain amount of exercises, and so he got in there to do push-ups, and so they time you 1 minute how many push-ups you can do, and then you're supposed to, over a period of 30 days, show improvement, and you'll test it again to show, oh, I did this many, now I can do this many, because I've been training this whole month. Well, he got out there and he just pumped out push-up after push-up, and they're like, this kid can do some push-ups. Uh-huh. And I'm like, yeah. It's like,
he's at practice.
Their disciplining is push-ups.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he's the one that gets in trouble a lot. It's like, yeah, he gets in trouble a lot, so he gets a lot of push-ups. And he got so good at it that he would actually say, another kid would get in trouble and say, give me 20. Uh-huh. I just say, give me 20, right? And then exactly what that means, get down 20 push-ups and do them right. And I need to hear them, because if I don't hear you counting, I don't know if you're cheating.
That's a good point.
So, and they started doing push. I can't hear you. Start over. What? I already did 5. It's like, I didn't hear you. I don't know you did 5. So they'd start over. So they learn.
Do you add some when they talk back during the process?
Oh, absolutely. If you, depending on the severity or depending on what's going on, you can 25, 30. Right?
Turn into 30 real quick.
Absolutely. So, but one of the kids was like, okay, give me 20. And he's relatively young, and they're going to struggle. They're not going to do it very well. And my other son that was good at at the push-up. He goes, I'll do them for him. I'm like, no, I don't need you to do them for him. I need him to do it. Well, can I do them with him? Yeah, go ahead. Do them with, and he'd get out there and do push-ups. Well, he got into junior high and high school. This kid could do 100 push-ups
Knock 'em out.
without stopping.
Well,
I'm going, okay, I could never do that. So, but anyway, my point behind all that is that even from discipline, can be some good things coming from that,
my parents, they, amongst other things, but they would make me run laps around the house.
Gina does that too.
And by the time I got in, junior high, they tried to put me on running the mile and 2 miles. I converted to pole vaulting because I didn't really like to run. I just had to run. But,
Did it on purpose.
But yeah, I was a little track star.
Yeah, and based on their age, now they get older, they're 14, 15, 16, whatever, and if they've got a phone, maybe that's their discipline. There's comes to a point where, for us, it was like 4 or 5 years old that corporal punishment really didn't work anymore. Because by that time, if you haven't established that you're the authority and that just with your voice, they know you're serious and they know that dad said it a certain way, I need to do it now or else there's consequences. If they don't have that by the age of 4 or 5, it's going to be hard for them to pick it up after that. So corporal punishment pretty much ended very early. And usually it's not necessary by the time you get to 4 or 5 because they've already understood that there's consequences to disobedience. And that's one of the things that I told my kids is like, the only time you're going to get a spanking is if you lie to me, if you're disobedient or outright rebellious, right? Any other, you're not going to get a spanking for. But if you lie to me or you're like disrespect, rebellion, disrespectful or disobedient, it's like you're going to get corporal punishment. And it's not like that was the first thing we went to. It's like that's the last resort. If you got corporal punishment, if you got a spanking, it was because we went through a whole series of threats, intermediate type of discipline. That didn't work. Another type of discipline. And eventually it's like, okay, we can't have you acting like this. We've got, 7 kids in this household and you start up, guess what happens? They all start up. And it had to stop.
My problem is I start with empty threats. Yeah, it's I had my son a while back. He grew up in a public servant, politician's son. So dad talks to a lot of people, and going into a restaurant or someplace, you run into somebody, and I don't want to be rude, and I like people in general, but sometimes a 1 minute conversation turned into 10. But he came up. I was talking to the gentleman. He came up. He's like, "I'm ready to go. You ready to go?" I'm looking at him like, boy. I mean, the embarrassing, and half of it is make us look good in public. At home, we can have a little misunderstanding, but you make me look bad in public or misunderstand, misrepresent, we're going to have an issue.
Yeah.
Quickly. And we'll do push-ups in public. I mean, a lot of times they'll want to crawl behind a wall or something, but
is that right?
Breaking down right there, yeah. And usually you don't have any other problems, but
yeah, the public display of disobedience or whatever is a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, you get to a point where they learn that at home and you're teaching them, look, in public, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And by that time they're knowledgeable enough to know that this is misbehavior. I need to stop now or there's going to be consequences. And there are plenty of times where we were in public and I was like, when we get home,
it's on.
It's on.
It's on, bro.
And they're like, no. It's like, look, I gave you chances, multiple chances. Right. This is not like you did one thing and now you're getting a spanking or whatever. It's a progression but you got to carry it through. And of course it can't be something, very harsh, the corporal punishment, because one of the things that I had to learn is not to administer corporal punishment when I'm angry. Because they'll make you angry, like especially in public, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like important to cool down. Because if you don't cool down before, you administer discipline, even if it's not corporal punishment, you tend to go overboard with it.
Yeah, I experienced that a little bit as a kid.
It happens. I mean, it happens. And it's a great, and I've had to be reminded by my wife and even God reminds me himself. It's like, calm down.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to do as a result of you being angry, is not going to be proportional to what.
You're going to leave a long-term wound.
Yeah, and it's not good. One of the things you had mentioned, the bench, having all these kids, we're always looking for opportunities to try to make the chaos a little bit less chaotic in the house.
That's half the battle.
And like your kids, they argue with each other. They're going to argue and fight. And our kids did too, just like any other normal kids. And we found it so difficult to deal with. Okay, I felt like a lawyer. All right, what did he do? Yada, 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 this. Okay, what did he do? This. And then I'd have to deliberate and go, okay, who's telling me the truth? Because there's two opposite stories here. And then try to figure out from all the evidence who's guilty. And it was, I don't know if I was right or not. I was only evaluating what they were telling me, and I don't know if they were lying.
No, I mean, sometimes they lie.
Absolutely. Or they see things very differently than what they actually were, and they may think that it was this way, but it wasn't.
We got adult friends to do the same thing.
Even as adults, yeah, you're right. So the solution for us, Gina had read this book and found this multiple things, and one of them in there was called The Bench. And it was probably one of the best things that happened in our discipline type of situations, because it took the load off of us so we don't have to referee anything. And the way the bench works is you find a place that's uncomfortable. It could be, your fireplace, hearth, or the floor, but not carpet or anything where it's comfortable, not a couch for sure.
I like the bench. My dad had the foot.
So sit somewhere uncomfortable. If they argue and say, Mom, so-and-so did this, Dad this, it's like, look, go to the bench, and here are the rules. And you're going to have to watch them first so they learn the rules and apply them correctly, so that you don't have to intervene afterward. But at first you teach them, it's like, look, okay, you're both going to have to apologize, but I didn't do anything. Obviously you did something. You don't think you did something, but your brother thinks you did something. And like, well, I don't know what I did. So, well, then you ask them, okay, what did I do? It's like, well, you said such and such. And the other one, I didn't say that. Doesn't matter. That's what he heard. So apologize for that.
I'm going to take some notes on this one if you don't mind.
Not at all. So apologize, and then you have to accept the apology. So the person that's apologizing, say you're apologizing to me and you give me a snarky, well, yeah, I'm sorry for whatever. It's like, you know what? That wasn't sincere. I'm not going to accept your apology until, you say it sincerely. And that's that person's prerogative, is to say, I don't believe that you're really sorry. So first say, I'm sorry, mean it. If the other person doesn't accept it, then you need to restate it or do something to change that so they accept their apology. And then the other person has to apologize to the other one for whatever the other person said they did, even if they don't think they did it. And once they accept their apology, they can get off the bench.
Okay.
Right? And if I've had them to the point where they're like, I'm not apologizing, I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, all right, you're going to sit there. And they'll sit there and they'll mope. And the other one's going, come on, we're playing, we need to go. It's like, fine, what did I do? Or whatever. And they'll say, well, you did this. I'm sorry for doing that. And then the other kid will go, well, I'm sorry for punching you or whatever. It's like, okay, boom, they're gone. Didn't have to intervene or anything. Once they learn the rules, it works on its own. And they'll come up to us and they'll say, Mom, Dad. It's like, bench. That's all I had to say, bench. And they'd go. I wouldn't deal with it. It got to a point where they literally sat down. I'm sorry for doing this. I'm sorry for doing that. Boom, they were gone. And that was it. It was over. They were back playing. They were back doing whatever they were doing. And it totally diffuses the argument situation. It was incredible. To me, it was like, I wish I'd have known this sooner.
So identify the problem, apologize, and move on. Is that
That's it. And they don't get to leave until they're both satisfied with each other's apology. And that's it. And you don't have to referee. And that's the beauty of it. So to me, with as many kids as we had in the number of, he's touching me and blah, 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 whatever, it's like, go to the bench.
What about sticking them in the same shirt? You ever tried that one?
No, I hadn't heard of that one. Boy, I tell you what, I don't know if I don't want to do that. So there's a lot of other good, ideas that I'm sure other people have that, talk to other people, ask people, what do you do for discipline? My kids are arguing, my kids are in this, and try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, maybe modify it. Maybe this bench, the way it is right now that I'm telling you, modify it and make it work for you.
I skipped work one time when I was young and went duck hunting. And my father came home and we had our ducks laid out in the driveway. And he grabbed one of them ducks and went to whipping me with that duck. And I was like, that's what you don't do. You leave the duck alone. leave the duck for eating.
That's right. That's right.
But I don't know a lot of people have been whipped with a duck. So I got an award on that one.
I can assure you that I don't think that very many people have. One of the interesting things with this discipline stuff, my sense of discipline and my wife's vary a little bit. So sometimes I'm a little harsh on the kids. I may give them too much of a punishment, like, I don't know, too many push-ups or too long of, no phone or whatever. Mm-hmm. And my wife, which she's great, she'll never challenge me or push against my decisions at the time when it's happening. But she may go later afterwards and go, I think that might have been a little bit too harsh.
Yeah.
And usually when it's too harsh, it's because I'm angry and I just want to give them maximum penalty, right? And
that's a good point, though. She does it away from the children.
That's crucial.
You have to respect each other in front of them.
Yeah, because you're undermining the authority of whoever's doing this. And it goes the other way, too. You don't undermine the authority of your spouse when they're disciplining the kids. You do it apart from that. And then what can happen after that is you can always modify the punishment, right? So it doesn't have to be discussed then. It can be 30 minutes later and go, I think it was a little harsh. And my wife's come to me multiple times and said, I think that was a little too much. And I'm like, well, we talk about it. And my pride, is this was my punishment. That's what it is. It's like, no, she's right. You got to listen. And she had a good feeling. And that's what I really love about her. She has a good sense of balance. And she'd say, I think it was a little harsh. So I swallow my pride. I say, I think you're right. Go to the child, apologize first. And that's important. I'm sorry.
I've recently learned that one. It's tough, but it works pretty well.
It does work. And I think the apology also builds a relationship with the child, but it also builds humility in us. Mm-hmm. And we need that. We need that humility. Apologize. Say you're sorry. The punishment was too much. I was angry and I shouldn't have done it while I was angry. And this is the new punishment. It's going to be lower. And you embrace them and tell them you're sorry and just go on. And one of the main things for me is that anytime that I would punish my kids, no matter what the punishment was, the discipline was, I forgot about it after it's done. You don't bring it back up ever again and just go on like nothing happened. And it changes the relationship you have with your child when they're not worried that you're still mad about what they did an hour ago.
Sure.
It's gone. It's done. The punishment's done. Let's move on. We're back to square one. And let's keep moving. And I think that's important for them to not feel that fear that is going to potentially be there, for the rest of the day or till tomorrow. Let it go after it's done.
And if you get whipped with a duck, eat that duck anyways.
I remember when we would get in trouble, my brother and I we knew we were going to get in trouble, and my dad would say, go to the room. This is it. My brother and I we were rough on my mom. We fought a lot, man. We just didn't listen. And when my dad would come home and say, go to your room, and we know what was coming. Mm-hmm. So we would go in and put on 3 or 4 pair of underwear.
A little protection.
Add another pair of pants on there. Uh-huh. Going on pretty quick. Uh-huh. And it's like, nope, that's not the way it's going to work. But yeah, it's funny now that we look back at it, but at the same time, we have to know and understand that for a family to work well together and to be a family that has peace in their midst, there needs to be discipline there. And again, corporal punishment needs to be the very last thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing else. And then at a certain age, like I said, after 4 or 5 years old, that's not even going to be an option anymore, really, because there's no point in it.
And discipline and domination are two different things.
Very different. And one of the things that I've learned because of disciplining the children, and I know we're getting kind of long on this one, but I think it's important to make sure the child knows and understands that this is not something you want to do. And here's the reason why we're here. and this is the reason that this is going to happen, but they're totally in control of not ever getting a spanking again. It's totally up to them. And after the discipline has been administered, you embrace them, you tell them you love them, and tell them, let's not do this anymore. I don't want to be here. It hurts my heart to have to spank you. And typically, man, I'll tell you what, it changes that relationship to one of mutual respect. And I think we both learn that how to handle things, and then they learn that there's consequences to disobedience, for example, and that the family can't function when there's that type of disobedience and chaos in our midst. It just can't. It won't work. But one of the things that's kind of tough, what do you think if, I'm not in this situation, neither are you, but what if the children that you're having discipline are from another marriage? What do you think about that?
You know, I've never experienced that as well, but I have friends that have, and it causes some problems because there's favoritism per se, and then you got stepdaddies and baby's mamas, and I don't know how. I think you have to set some rules and boundaries, almost even put it on paper and maybe get that right before you even go into the marriage.
Yeah, I think it's not fair for whoever the spouse is going in that is not their children, because the kids know real quick, well, you're not my dad or you're not my mom, and they can always use that. But usually that parent loves them very much. They're there because they love the spouse that they're marrying, and they're willing to take in the children that belong to that spouse.
That's always my advice. If you're going to marry her, wonderful lady, but you better go ahead and adopt that child. He's going to be your child.
Yeah.
You have to raise him up right. But yeah, a stepfather can throw that off a little bit.
It can, and in my opinion, this is just, like I said, I haven't experienced it. I've seen it, but in my opinion, there needs to be an agreement between the two spouses that these are our kids. And if you're going to be their stepfather or their stepmother, then I'm going to work with you just like if they were our kids. And if you would need to discipline them, of course, corporal is going to be a different thing with this, but taking away their phones or, limiting their time on tablet or whatever it may be, that the other spouse, the parent of those children can't undermine that discipline. And if it ever does come down to the corporal part, then the parent who's the spouse, who's the parent of those children would need to administer that, because I wouldn't want somebody else giving corporal punishment to my children if they were in a different marriage. And, but if the person who has those children, it's their children, they don't believe in any discipline, it's not going to work. I've seen it already where the dad is like, my wife, they're her kids, and I can't tell these kids anything. Or
I've seen it cause multiple divorces.
Absolutely. I've seen it too. And it's like, before you get into that marriage, this is going to be serious enough to where it could cause a separation or a divorce. And it's not fair to the other person who's coming in saying, I'm willing to take on your children and you and love you like my spouse and like my children, and then not have any say in how you raise those kids. So I don't know. It's a tough one. And if anyone ever gets in that situation before you actually get married and start living together and taking in those kids, make sure you talk this through, because I guarantee you it can and will destroy your marriage. Because you have a dad that's like, these kids are back talking me and I can't do anything.
Yeah.
That's not a family.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not good for the kids either.
It's not good for them either, because they're going to learn that they can do this to an adult and with no repercussions. Right. But one other situation that I came up with, and I haven't been in this situation, but I did see this work very effectively. And that is, what if you have an older child that is basically checked out of the relationship between you and your child, right?
Mm-hmm.
A 15-year-old who decides, you know what, I'm angry, I don't like my situation. In this example, I don't want to go to church, right? It's like, look, that's fine. it's always a battle. You're going to go to church. You're going to do this. And there's such a bad relationship there. There's tension all the time. And it's just the kid's checked out. What do you do with something like that? When the relationship has gotten that bad, what I've seen that's worked is that you set up what's called a contract. And you got really nothing to lose because you've already kind of lost the kid anyway, in the sense that they're not respecting you. They don't want to do anything that you want them to do. So pick your battle and say, okay, let's say you want them to start going to church, right? And they're like, I'm not going to church. Mom doesn't go. Why do I need to go?
Get the duck.
Right, get the duck. Watch out. And so it's like, look, okay, I'm going to make a deal with you. We're going to drop a contract. And this is what I want. I want you to go to church every Sunday with us. Don't complain. I want you to pay attention. I don't want you to sleep, or I don't want you to listen to your, music or whatever else. You're going to pay attention. And then, during the week, I want you to listen to 2 podcasts that I'm going to send you.
Yeah.
30-minute podcast on faith or whatever you want to send them. Yeah. And you'll listen to those and you'll tell me what they were about so that I know that you listen. Yeah. 2 minutes. I don't need a report.
Yeah.
I just need 2 minutes. What was it about? What did, not even what do you learn? What was it about?
So put it on paper.
And then put it on paper. And then you tell them, okay, you do this for me. Then, let's say they don't want to go to church. You say, okay, you won't go to church, but you'll listen to 3 or 4 podcasts throughout the week that I send you, and you'll tell me what they're about so that I know what you listen to them, and you won't have to go to church. And you write that down in detail, right? And you say, this is what's going to happen, and you both sign it. Now, I think the kid would be like, okay, I'm not going to go to church. That's fine, but I still have to do something. And that way there's a give and take.
Sure.
And there's no fighting. It's in the contract, right? That you agree to this. Now, if it needs to be modified, if maybe say it wasn't fair, maybe I say you need to do 20 podcasts a week, and it's like, turned out to be a little too much. Right?
Amend the contract.
It's like amend the contract and say, okay, let's go down to whatever.
Sounds like a good idea.
And then I think what happens in those, and not just one thing, it could be multiple things, right? It could be how much time they get to spend at a friend's house, or what other situations you're running into that you're clashing with this child. And then what happens is it kind of takes the level down a couple of notches, where you're no longer fighting with each other because you've agreed to something. So make sure that it's a win-win situation, right? Don't make it a win-lose situation where the parent wins and they lose, because then you still have a problem. And I think that diffuses a lot of the tension, but at the same time, they're listening to those podcasts, right? And they're telling me what they're about. I don't know if it's making an impact or not. That's not my job. That's God's job, right? To touch their heart. But at least they're doing something on their own time that they can choose to do on their own time that I've asked them to do, and it's in the contract. So that's, one of those things that I think could work if that's where you've gotten with a relationship with your child, is to draw out a contract and make it fair, for both of y'all, and see if that helps.
Hey, I hope I don't have to, but it sounds like a better option than I've seen before. So.
Yeah. And again, you've got nothing to lose because that kid's already checked out. So I think it's a good option.
So what is, in our church, what does the catechism say about raising kids in this crazy world?
Well, one of the things it does say, this is in paragraph 2223, it tells us that parents have the first responsibility for the education of their children. The parents are the primary educators. A lot of us think that the schools are the educators, right? Well, in a certain sense, yes. They're going to teach them the math and English and all the things they need to learn there. But there's a lot more to learning in life than just math and English. There's how to act, how to behave, the virtues of being honest, high integrity and loyalty and trust and trustworthy, all these things that are good virtues. And then teaching them your faith.
Yeah.
For us, like I had mentioned before, one of the reasons with homeschool is because we wanted them to learn their faith. So one of their classes was a theology class. Of course, it was age appropriate, but I taught that to them. And it was something that for us was crucial And then I realized that's what God demands of us. That's what the church demands of us, is that you must educate your children. So our obligation and our duty is send them to school, whether it's to a private school like you're doing, which is a great idea, public school, or homeschool. It doesn't really matter. Make sure they get a good education. So they know how to read and write well. How are they going to read the Word of God if they don't know how to read?
True.
This is so crucial. So they better learn how to read so that they can see for themselves what God has to tell them. And so that part of the education is very important. But then the spiritual aspect, the spiritual education is just as important. Because if we don't teach our children what is expected of them from their Heavenly Father, then they grow up to be very secular, and in time potentially could grow into persons that are not of high virtue, because a lot of times society doesn't really focus on being virtuous, being holy. It's do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel good, right? And just leave other people alone and do whatever you want to do. But that's not always it's not the most important part of the education. Is just the math and the reading. It's the spiritual aspect. We've got to teach them how to have a relationship with God. And that's where I think, at least with me starting out so young, that I taught our children prayers. We have a whole set of prayers that our kids can learn, and they knew them. And we would recite them at night. We would have nightly prayer. They knew all their prayers. And there's an interesting story. There was a priest who was at an airport, and he was walking to go to his gate, and he saw a bunch of the Hare Krishna, in their orange robes and stuff, and I think they shaved their head. They were there passing out pamphlets and stuff, and something told him to go to this one young kid. Mm-hmm. And so he went over there, and he took a little pamphlet. He said, "Son, did you used to be Catholic?" He was like, "How did you know?" "I don't know." He goes, "Yeah, I used to be Catholic." He said, "Well, I'm not going to try to convince you to come back, but answer me one question. Where did we lose you?"
Yeah.
"Where did we lose you?" And he saw that it was a priest, right? He was wearing the collar and everything else. And his father, Ken Roberts, and the kid said, "You taught me my prayers, but you never taught me to pray."
Yeah. Amen.
And he said that struck him hard, hard, because it's not just about learning prayers. It's about learning to pray, about having that relationship with God. And so we need to teach them. They need to see that we love God. They need to see it in us. You would need to teach them the faith, not only just here's the rule, but what the rule is and why. Why is it important to not steal? Why is it important to be faithful? And why is it important to believe this about whatever? And once they understand the reasoning behind it, they're more likely to embrace it. But if it's just something that you just do because that's what you do, then anything can come along in life and rip that away.
Yeah. My kids, they'll stick with the basic meal prayer or Hail Mary or Our Father, and as they get older, I'm teaching them, pray from the heart. Our Father is wonderful, wonderful prayer, but you need to dig deep every once in a while.
Exactly.
And, reach down there and say your own prayer as well.
Exactly. And my kids would say, "Well, I don't know how to do that." And it's like, no one knows how to do that just off the start. You got to practice. You got to, when you read the scriptures, the Psalms, and there's so many beautiful places in scripture that you can learn from how to praise God, how to glorify God, how to give thanksgiving and praise. And it's like, you got to practice. You've got to say those things in your mind and in your heart as if you were talking to him. And so it's important that in this education part, give them a good education, give them the opportunity to become whatever they want to become, whether it's, HVAC type of work and blue collar work or white collar work where they're doing other kinds of things. It doesn't matter. Give them the opportunity for the education as best as you can. And for sure, teach them the faith. Don't expect that what they're getting at church is enough. It is not near enough. I mean, most of our kids at our church, they go through about 16 to 18 weeks of lessons, and that's for a year. That's nothing. They need to be able to hear it, see it, and learn it at home. And if you're not doing nightly prayers, I think it's a good opportunity to start. Make yourself a special place where you can get together, read a short little scripture. Even if you have little ones and they're going to be running around, let them run around.
Yeah.
But the older ones need to know that it's important to spend a little bit of time with God, and be sure that you attend the Sunday worship. Go to Mass every Sunday, and don't be, oh, I'm tired today. Well, they see that you're lax about your relationship with God, and your respect and love for God is lax. They're just going to follow suit. I think it's important. You had mentioned little traditions that could be, done. Like I think the Angelus was one that you mentioned. I think one time, it's just a short prayer that is prayed at appointed times throughout the day. And it's really just meant to bring to mind that God is always present.
Sure.
And we get busy, work, whatever we're doing, school, we forget. But when you have those little traditions that, at 12 o'clock noon, we always say the Angelus. At 6 o'clock, we say the Angelus, right? It just makes everything shut down for just 2 minutes. It doesn't even take 2 minutes. Just enough to give pause to say, Lord, I know you're here. And I acknowledge your greatness and your love for me.
Yeah, I mentioned I was talking to a priest the other day, and he mentioned his father went to morning mass every morning, and then at 6 p.m. they would say the Angelus together, and then have an hour of devotional at that time. And,
Wow!
And I looked in his eyes, and I was like, "That's why you're a priest." So
that's incredible.
You want to raise a priest and give back to the church? That's a good way right there. And I mean, I think all the subject what we've expressed is lead by example. You can say whatever you want, but those kids every day they're looking at what you do and how you operate, and talk's cheap as
most definitely. I think one of the things that I found it to make learning the scriptures fun is to play Bible trivia. What I would do with my kids is I couldn't get them to just read something and let me ask them questions. Mm-hmm. They just wouldn't do it, and it wouldn't work well. So what I started doing is for whatever reason, my kids were always motivated by money. So I would take nickels, dimes, and quarters, and I'd have a whole stack of them there. And I'd say, okay, look, we're going to play Bible trivia, and you can either get a book and use it from a book, or if you know the scriptures well enough, you can ask them questions, right? And so I would start from the youngest to the oldest, because at our house, the youngest always went first. And the older ones learned that the youngest always goes first. So we start with the youngest, and I give them the simplest questions. They may or may not get it, but, give them hints and whatever else to try to get them to get a little bit of confidence, right? And so over time, as I go down each kid, I ask a question, and they could ask one that was hard. They'd get a quarter. A medium one would be, 10 cents, and an easy one would be $5. And so they would be telling me what they want. I'd give them the question, they'd answer right or wrong. Somebody had an opportunity to steal it if they didn't know the answer for half the amount or the lesser, monetary value for the next one. And they loved it. Now, the ones that didn't love it were the young ones, because they didn't know very much. And I don't know how many times I saw this throughout these years as they were all growing up, where the young one was always crying because they're like, I don't know anything, and I can't answer these questions. Like, look, I asked the same questions over and over. There's probably about maybe 50 or 60 questions that I ask, right? And as they grow older, they remember. I was like, or even if I'll ask this question to this kid, it's like, remember the answer, because I'm going to ask it again maybe tomorrow or the next, and it'll be your turn, and then you can answer. And the repetition, really, is what it was more than anything else. And of course, the allurement of getting a quarter or getting a dime or a nickel. And then the older ones, I noticed, and this was very, very sweet, I noticed that they had compassion for the younger ones, right? And so they would try to help the younger ones to answer the question. They'd give them hints or sometimes whisper in the ear, and the little one, oh, this is the answer. And that's it, and it showed, first of all, it gives us time to spend together. But secondly, it gave us time to learn the Word of God. And also I started asking them questions about our faith. What are the sacraments? What are the gifts of the Holy Spirit, et cetera, et cetera. And over time, they tend to start to learn with the repetition. So make it fun. It can be any other type of game or, situation that you can just throw out a question and give them some kind of reward. After they got older, the older ones, we quit playing that, and we had a Sunday lesson every Sunday, 30 minutes to an hour, usually an hour, because I get a little long-winded, as you can tell. And and we talk about a particular subject, and then they go on their way. So it takes time and effort, and maybe it's a preparation, but I guarantee you it's worth it.
Amen. Amen. You only get one chance to raise them up right.
That's right. And man, it goes by fast. I'll tell you that. Do y'all ever watch any good movies or anything like that to help your kids kind of learn virtues or anything else like that?
Yeah, lately we try once a week, and that works out about half the time. But lately I've been working on the Fox Nation's new biographies about the saints.
The saints, yes.
And it's you mentioned earlier, having time together, prayer time, and kids are running around, the younger ones, and maybe that's something. It's as they get older, it's easier to keep them all focused, but it's tough when you get 3 kids in one room that are scatterbrained, and much less I'd say 9. But we all have a game plan, and until the bullets start hitting the wall behind you.
It is, and for us, I'll make the kids come watch something. We've been watching the Chosen.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
It's just something that's like, look, I mean, they don't argue. They're just like, we're going to watch one episode, and I just want you to watch it. That's all. I'm not going to quiz you on it, or I'm going to do anything. And they're good with it, and they're fine. They've grown accustomed to knowing that my job is to teach them, and their job is to be receptive. Doesn't mean they're going to go out and start watching the Chosen on their own or read the whole Bible, whatever. It just, they're receptive. And that's what really we need to build in them, is receptivity, because as they grow older and experience their own faith journey, it's receptivity that's going to be the key. Are they open to God's Holy Spirit working in their life the way the Holy Spirit wants to work? And if they're receptive, then the chances are pretty good that they're going to advance in their faith and in their walk with Christ. So I think that's really important. There was a study that revealed that if a father doesn't go to church, even if the wife goes, that only 1 in 50 of the children become regular worshipers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty bleak statistic. If a father goes regularly, regardless of the mother's practice, between 67 and 75% of their children will attend church as adults. What's the message behind this? Fathers that are faithful to the Lord are important.
We should be our spiritual leaders of our household, for sure.
We are called to be the spiritual leaders by the Word of God, by God Himself, for us to lead our families to the promised land, right? We're that Joshua, we're Moses, leading the people, leading our family. We're going to be held accountable if we didn't try at least to do our best with whatever resources we had, whatever intellect and limitations we had to deal with. You do your best. God's going to hold you accountable if you don't do your best.
Yeah, and then wrapping the show up, I think I'll say, looking back, our children, we've tried to put off them getting a cell phone until they're at least 16 years old.
Right.
And I'll tell you one mistake I made when we moved in the home I'm in now. We had TVs installed in every room, and there's been one doesn't work now and one's been removed, but that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Don't put TVs and any iPads or anything. 30 minutes, hour at a time, but TVs in every room.
Yeah.
Looking back, I could have done better on that one.
Limiting screen time is very important. Our kids don't get them till they're 16. They start driving. I think it's important for them to have it then.
Sure.
Not necessarily before. They'll have an iPod, which they can get online and stuff, but not a phone. But all that, as you're progressing through all this, it's really about spending time with each other that's important. I don't know about you, but we've been on a few vacations ourselves together. Like I mentioned, we've gone camping together. But we should celebrate stuff together. Your birthdays, make sure that it's something that the family can rally around and feel. These are little traditions that we build in our family that everybody looks forward to, and they love getting together for any occasion now. And so, of course, there's always food involved. There's always some type of entertainment, something fun to do. And to me, as our kids were growing up, it was very important that we spent time with like-minded families.
Yeah.
Not because we were exclusionists, right? We weren't trying to say, oh, we're better than these other families. Not at all. We welcomed everybody, but the people that we hung around with, that we made intimate friendships with, and our kids made friendships with, were people that were like-minded. And for many years, we had a small church group with most of the families, or there were large families. We had a few that maybe had 3 or 4 kids. But regardless of that, it wasn't just for large families. That's just how it worked out. They all had the same idea. We want our kids to get to heaven. We need to be an instrument of getting them to heaven. And we need an environment for them to grow and prosper in their capacity to get to heaven.
That's really all that matters.
It really is. And these friendships that they developed with these other families, are all our kids perfect? Of course not. We're going to make mistakes. They're going to be sinners, everything else. But your chances get better, because if these kids know that this is how we're supposed to be living, and these other kids do too, and they all have the similar type of level of virtue or expectations, then sometimes they're going to hold each other accountable. Say, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. And some of the other kids may go, well, no, I'm not doing that. And that puts pressure on them. And so hopefully maybe over time it kind of balances out. Yeah, they're probably going to get in trouble a few times, but maybe they hold each other accountable enough to where they grow up to have those strong friendships and have a strong relationship with Christ, right?
Yeah, I mean, like any relationship, you want to surround yourself with people that bring you up. And
Absolutely.
There's enough negativity in the world, and you got to find people that make you a better man or better woman. And just like me and you, I mean, I like you and all, Henry, but you bring me way up, so that's why I do this show.
No, and I think this aspect of establishing your family life is important. And one of the other things very important to me is that my kids see how much I love my wife.
Yeah, very important.
Holding hands, an embrace, a kiss, not fighting or arguing in front of them, right? Just when they know that daddy loves mom, there's a certain sense of peace in the family. When they know that daddy doesn't love mom, that's when it gets bad.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you, I saw a study one time, and it was from abused children that didn't have the best upbringing, but that was number one, not knowing that mother or father loved that child,
Yep.
but that child knowing that mother and father loved each other
Yep.
was number one in their top of their list for sure.
It gives them stability when they know that mom and dad are stable.
True.
And no matter what else is going on, when they're solid and they're working together and they're supporting the kids and they're elevating the kids, then there's stability there that they sense, and it helps them get through difficult situations. One of the other things that my dad taught me, and I think I'd mentioned this before, but my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, wasn't very affectionate at all. Didn't really tell my dad that he loved him. No hugs, nothing like that. Because he was brought up to be macho.
Yeah.
You just don't show affection.
Polish males in my family are very similar.
Is that right? Well, my dad, thank God, realized that was important. And he swore to himself that he would show affection to us. And he did. He always hugged us. He would kiss us in public. It didn't matter where. And so I grew up with that, and I passed that on to my kids, that it's like, look, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to kiss you on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
And when I greet you, I'm going to tell you I love you in front of people. It's like, that's just the way it's going to be. And we did that all the time. It didn't matter which kid, where we were. If the occasion called for that, we did it. And it's normal to them. They don't get embarrassed that, dad hugs them or kisses them in public or whatever. And as a matter of fact, I had one lady come up to me and she says, I wish my son would come up and kiss me. He doesn't want me to hug him. He doesn't kiss me. He doesn't want to kiss me. I don't want me to kiss him in public and not even at home. I wish I had that. And it's like, I feel sorry for you because I think it's beautiful that relationship is there. Just an embrace. It didn't have to be a kiss, just an embrace. I think it's important. That to me led to understanding that not only that relationship is important, but the spiritual aspect of this is very important too, that you have to pray for your children. Don't just pray with them. That's important. But in your prayer life, pray for them. As we had mentioned in the previous podcast, there are 3 life-changing experiences that they're going to have in their life. Most of them is that where they're going to work, who they're going to marry, and then their relationship with God. Life-changing relationships, life-changing events in their lives. And who you marry is going to be very important. And so I pray, ever since the first one, I've always prayed for the future spouses of my children. Because I imagine myself, it's like, my wife and I are 8 days apart. We're almost the same age.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, man, as I was growing up, there was a little girl out in East Texas who was growing up just like me, going through the same grades, going through the same, things, high school, junior high football, whatever, games and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, isn't that something that we're at the opposite ends of Texas, and then we meet and get married and have kids. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Every one of my children here has someone out there right now, born or maybe not quite born yet, that they're going to marry.
Yeah.
What are they going to go through? Because I always wondered, wow, what did my wife go through when she was little? She almost died. Her family got carbon monoxide poisoning in their home. And had it not been for a neighbor to come in and check because her dad didn't show up for work,
Well,
a concerned neighbor, and found them, should have been dead.
well,
And that made me realize, man, I need to pray for my children's spouses, because for whatever reason, God allowed my wife, my future wife, to survive that so she could be my wife.
amen.
And so I'm thinking, there's a lot of, and I got a lot of boys, so I'm thinking, I got a lot of little girls out there who could be in precarious situations that my sons are going to marry. They may be in a bad family or whatever. It's like, so I prayed for their families. I pray for them so that they have a good life. And so when they meet my son or my daughter, that they've had a decent life, a life of faith, that where there was minimal, type of traumatic experiences in their lives. And so that potentially my son and my future daughter-in-law or my future son-in-law would have a good life.
Yeah, it's life-changing. And as we know, scars and demons from the past, they'll pop their head up if you don't work them out.
No doubt, no doubt. And the last thing I would say, this is one thing that I did too, was I consecrated every one of my kids to the Lord. And what does that look like? Well, for me, this is what I did is, as an infant, I would look at them and say, one day this child of mine is going to grow up, and this kid's going to have to go through the things that I went through, and struggles and everything else. And so I blessed and prayed over all their senses, their eyes, and I would say something simple like, Lord, may this child's eyes see, the goodness in this world. May they be able to see and read your word. May they have goodness come in through their eyesight, in their ears. May they hear the word of God. May they hear good things and never, in their words and their hands and their feet, I just blessed them, did a sign of the cross over all of those. And I prayed over all their senses and things in their heart, that, even though it's going to get broken someday, that it would mend and continue onward and strength without falling into depression or despair. Every one of them. And I think that's important. The Lord will decide what he does, right? But I think it's important for us, especially as fathers, to bless our children. It's something that I believe God uses through us as fathers as a means of blessing for those children.
Beautiful.
So you kind of want to, let's kind of summarize some of the stuff we've done here. I think there's no one way to one correct way to raise children. There's so many different things that we didn't even talk about that we could have continued, but we're getting, to a point where it's getting a little long-winded here. But, each child's going to be different, so you have to really give special thought and consideration on how you're going to address parenting this child. And if you don't take the time to think about, this kid's different than this one, how am I going to handle this kid in different situations than this, then you're more likely to make mistakes.
We're all special and unique.
We are.
Is there a good parenting book out there you would recommend, Henry, that you're aware of?
You know what? What we ended up doing is picking and choosing from different parenting books. I would recommend read and listen to stuff and make your own, because I don't think there's one parenting book out there that is the fix-all, because we're so different. We come from different backgrounds, cultures, languages, and everything else. And it's hard to pinpoint, like I said, one correct way. I think depending on your family situations, read a lot, listen a lot, and take and pick and choose and try things, and make up your own way to raise your family. What I'm giving you here works for us, may not work for other people.
Yeah, and I'll sum it up, and you've given some wonderful advice as a father, but also what I've learned is do the best you can and get a little better every day. And if you look back and you've got guilt on what you've seen in the past, all you can do is do better every day and lead by example. And there's never a day where it's too late to go out and love that baby.
Never.
Raise him up, and some people might have to raise them when they're 30 years old. And I've seen kids from tough environments that I've taught them lessons at 18 that I learned at 10. But we're all a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Well, God bless you, brother. Have a good day.
Same to you.
And we appreciate you guys joining us. If you enjoy our show, please like us and share us and tell your friends about Search 185.
Yeah, hit that like button and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you.
Thank you for joining us for the Search 185 podcast, where we discuss what it means to be human and made in the image and likeness of God.